Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter. Of course, you can subscribe to the channel. Let's talk boxing. I've just stayed up till 20 to 5 in the morning here in the UK to watch REGIS PROGRAIS homecoming fight against Danielito Zorrilla. And listen, it was more effective than a lullaby, man. I deserve a medal for still being awake. Have you guys seen the movie The Vanishing? Whereby, I've got to be careful with the words I use, I don't want to trigger any algorithms, but this dude would put this chemical on this rag and he grabs up his victims and they pass out. I feel like I just had to fight off two dudes trying to wrap that thing around my face. It was terrible. I deserve a medal for still being up and having this energy to bring you guys a video. It was a shocking fight, but there was only one clear winner in it, in my humble opinion. And that was Zorrilla. I had him winning 116, 111, and I really struggled to make a case for REGIS PROGRAIS winning the fight. Of course, he did get the result. The scorecards, in my opinion, were shocking. 118, 110, and 117, 111, two of the judges had it. The other judge had it to Zorrilla by a single round, which even that I thought was too close. But let's talk about this for a minute, and I'll explain why I thought that was a shocking outcome overall. You know, I'm seeing Eddie Hearn gaslight us. He came out post-fight and he said it was a really bad fight. But listen, I'm really disappointed in Zorrilla. He had a big opportunity here and he came and he chose not to fight and engage, and he just ran the whole night after being dropped early and so on and so forth. Listen, you can push that narrative if you want, Eddie, but I ain't buying it, mate. You ain't fooling me. Because when Devin Haney puts in those sorts of performances when he was under your watch at Matchroom, you were calling it beautiful boxing. Zorrilla was getting on the back foot and he was taking away the pocket. You see, one of the problems that REGIS PROGRAIS had, he had a couple of problems. Firstly, he had a lot of lateral upper body movement where he's almost egging Zorrilla to step in, and he's looking to make him fall short so he can counter him. Zorrilla was not biting. He didn't want to know. He's saying, I'm going to move. You're going to have to enter the pocket. You make your entry point count. Immediately, he's got a problem because he's sitting there from his southpaw stance and he's got quite languid, almost like he's looking like he's sparring. And as he's throwing the jab, he's rotating down with the jab. Even often he's not even double jabbing and he's not even going for the target. Sometimes he's missing the lead glove of Zorrilla, who's got his hands quite far out. So he's got an obstacle to bypass. He's not even touching the obstacle that he needs to bypass. And when he's moving around the ring, yes, it was negative, it was boring. But if you're not landing anything, and I'm landing 4 jabs, and then all of a sudden you land a hook to my body because you've decided to run a red light, and then I throw a little hook in return and I land on you as well. Well, you've landed 1 hook, you might land 1 jab at some stage. I've landed 4 or 5 jabs, which might not be special jabs. They're just clipping you here and there, and a hook of my own. How are you winning the round? I don't get it. It's not about who's walking forward. The ring is a certain size because you're allowed to utilize the whole ring. So this idea that this guy was just running, what does that even mean? And the funny thing is as well, there was a massive tail on his entry. So apart from that predictable pouring jab, which would not even come close, he would start to shuffle his feet a lot more aggressively when he's seeking to enter. So he's quite languid and slow, and then all of a sudden you see him speed up his feet. He shuffled them as well to step in. Well, now you're giving the guy a tell. Okay, he's relaxed, he's chilling, he's just showing me a bit of upper body movement. The minute he's going to start showing movement, it's not going to be sudden because his feet are too far out. So he's not lulling me into this false sense of security and putting me to sleep, and all of a sudden, bang, he catches me. As he's nice and slow and chilled, I'm going to see him shuffle his feet, and I'm going to take half a step back. It was just so easy for Zorrilla to evade REGIS PROGRAIS. Don't hold it against Zorrilla for the fact that PROGRAIS is telegraphing his entries and Zorrilla's got to step out. In BKB, bare knuckle boxing, when it first came out, I remember they had this slanted ring, right? It was like this little circle or little octagon, and then it sort of went upwards. So that would prevent you from sort of backtracking because you'd be going uphill. So you're locked into a very small space. It would be a phone booth fight. If that's what you want, go watch BKB. In boxing, you are allowed to use the entire ring. You know when Devin Haney fought George Kambosos in the first fight? Nobody called that a close fight. You know why? Because Kambosos wasn't landing anything. When Devin Haney was popping in with a jab, every time Kambosos would come in, he'd wrap him up. And if you go and look at the CompuBox numbers, Devin Haney really didn't do much in that first fight. There were sporadic jabs here and there, the power shots, the jab numbers. Compared to other opponents of Devin Haney, he didn't really land much. And post-fight, he actually said Kambosos was a lot harder to hit than I thought. He had a better defense. But one of the problems that Kambosos had is that he's got this really good trigger counter Kambosos. He'll slip the first shot and then come up with a fast combination. But his back leg swings around sometimes when he throws that, and he can square up. That's exactly what was happening with PROGRAIS tonight. He would be throwing these big wide hooks because he was getting desperate and couldn't close the range. That back foot was squaring up. And what did Zorrilla do? He was doing what Devin Haney was doing to Kambosos at times, more in the second fight than the first. But even in the first, he was taking a step out and maximizing the gap. So now that you've squared up, you have to reset. You're starting from square one and you haven't landed anything. In other words, because of his footwork and his balance tonight, Prograis, ruining his own construct when he's getting desperate to throw these big powerful shots, he couldn't go again after the first phase of attack. He had to reset. And when he did run red lights and decide I'm going to just run in and throw these big hooks, when he's throwing the hooks, he might land one or two to the body, clip into the head. But because he's then losing his position because he's so desperate to land something big, you'd see Zorrilla come back with hooks of his own. In other words, at range, Prograis wasn't landing anything. Zorrilla was. When Prograis would come in, more often than not, he would land something and then Zorrilla would land something in return. I cannot make a case for how Prograis won this fight. Now, needless to say, the first round he should have been knocked down. That should have counted as a knockdown. It didn't count as a knockdown. But fair enough. Even without that, I can't see how you give this guy 7 rounds. What 7 rounds do you give him? I know a lot of people, like I said, are saying poor fight, very boring, low output. Low output is fine. Boring is fine. But there's still somebody that's outlanding somebody else. If you're talking about ring generalship, then it's not necessarily the guy that's moving forward. It's the guy who's making the fight his own. Whose fight did they fight tonight? Zorrilla dictated the terms of the fight. They fought Zorrilla's fight. Zorrilla was the one making him do what he wanted to do. And you saw his facial expressions as he looked into the camera late on in the fight. That's my facial expression too when I heard the scorecards. Zorrilla knew he won that fight. He ran straight to the turnbuckle, jumped on the turnbuckle, and it wasn't one of those fake things that you're trying to influence the judges. He knew he won that fight. And here's the thing. Whilst he carries a lot of power in both hands, and you could see that, and Prograis, I think, was tentative. He was kept honest because of that. If Prograis fights like that against Devin Haney, he's going to lose every round. It will look like the Kambosos fight. Because the ability to close that range and get inside and start to work, that's the sort of thing that Haney can stop you from doing. Now, he followed him out when his own knockdown came. He followed him out of the pocket and he had some success there. But he wasn't showing the willingness to be able to do that consistently enough because he was getting countered when he would more often than not try to step in like that. So the counter argument to me saying Haney would probably win every round against Prograis based on that performance is that Haney doesn't offer the sort of punching power I would have thought that Zorrilla does. Okay, he seemed to have what they were calling on the telecast sneaky power. It did seem to be solid. So maybe he would be more willing to run those red lights more often. And even if he's ended up in a position where he's losing his positioning because he's got power, and we've seen Devin Haney look a little bit vulnerable in the past, maybe he can fancy his chances to blow him out of there. But if you're talking about who's going to win the majority of the rounds, if he boxes like that, he's got no chance. He openly spoke about the fact post-fight that he needs to go and work on cutting off the ring and stuff like that. It was a very poor performance, in my opinion, from REGIS Prograis, and I'm a fan of his. So that's how I saw it. Let me know how you saw it, ladies and gents. Teofimo Lopez at points against Josh Taylor was also showing that upper body movement and luring Taylor in, and he was able to make Taylor overreach and counter him. But even when Taylor did on occasion, too late in my opinion, but even when he did try to get on the back foot, you saw Teofimo Lopez had the ability to then hunt. There's variation there. REGIS Prograis did not show variation tonight. That's my take on it. Let me know what you think, ladies and gents. Please don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, an uppercut on the notifications button. Tomorrow I'm also going to bring a video discussing Canelo Alvarez and the whole saga with Badou Jack. I think Badou's done really well here, and we're going to make a case for it. Take care. God bless.